Hello, so today we are going to be analyzing the second round of the Metro East Summer Chess Bonanza. I'm playing with uh white pieces. With the white pieces, yeah. I got the name placements wrong, but it's fine. But I'm playing with the white pieces in this game. Yeah. So I go for e4. My opponent goes for the French defense. And here I go for d4. My opponent plays his move d5. I go for bishop to d3. My opponent goes for knight to f6 here. And here I go for e5. Oh, well, my opponent goes for knight fd7. And I simply just go for knight to e2 here. And here they play c5, immediately threatening to trap my bishop. So I respond with c3. They go for knight to c6. And here I play a3. Now if I had castled, then they would have had some takes, and knight to b4. And this is a little annoying. Yes, even though the engine says white is better, I don't want to go into this because they put a tempo on the bishop. Instead, simply a3 solves that with an idea that after takes, you can't go here anymore because of my a pawn. C takes d4, c takes, and here they go for queen to b6, pressuring two pawns at the same time. I go for bishop to c2. The idea is to just defend this pawn. But what would have been better is actually knight bc3. The idea being that if you take this free pawn, which isn't really free, bishop to e3 is very strong here. And if you go bishop to c5, then the knight to a4 is very strong here. And if you go queen to a5, and uh, let me just change it. There we go. Here just b4. So yeah, and yes, you can take, but this is just losing. Uh, king to f1 is the top move of the engine. I was thinking like bishop drops back here. Well, basically, you cannot take the free pawn. I missed this, and instead I played bishop to c2, just defending the pawn. They go g6. Here I go for knight bc3, just developing my pieces. They go for bishop to g7, castles, and here I decide to go for f4. They play f6, and here I go king to h1. F takes e5, and here I actually make a blunder with f takes e5 because they can just take the rook. What would have been better is d takes e5, but then it gives them a passed pawn over here. So this would have been better, but I didn't like it because it gives them a fast pawn. Anyway, I went for queen, queen takes f1. They go for knight takes d4. Just taking a free pawn. Here I go for bishop to e3. And this is equal, but at the time I thought it was worse. Because they can just defend this with the bishop takes e5. But what I had missed is actually knight to a4. I missed this move. Oh wait, no, not knight to a4. Oh wait, no. There's just oh, you take first and then knight to a4. Because what happens if knight to a4 now? Then there's queen c7 counterattacking the bishop. Yeah, makes sense. Apparently, I had to take first because now in this queen to c7 line, there's just knight takes, and you're winning here. I didn't go to that. Instead, I played this move rook d1, which is a mistake, trying to put pressure on the pinned piece, because then they can just take this free pawn over here. And if you count the material, I'm just down a whopping 3 pawns. They have 2 connected fast pawns. And there's not much compensation here other than the fact that their bishop is in development. So, and their king might be weak, but they still have this dark squared bishop. I go for bishop takes d4, queen takes c2, and here I go for bishop takes e5, removing the dark square defender. They took with the knight, and here I go for queen to f6. They go for queen to f5, so I just give a check. Because I don't want to trade queens, because this will be completely losing if I trade the queens. So I give a check uh, on d8. They go for queen to f8, and here I go for queen to c7. Uh, Hitting the knight, and I don't have much counterplay here. But my only chance of getting a draw here is if I manage to set up an attack on the king, maybe even potentially win. But they can defend. But the only way is if I set up an attack on the king, and you can't really do that with just two knights and a rook and a queen. You have to bring them first. But because there's not an extra pair of rooks, I can't bring a rook to the f file. So they go for knight to g4. Now the idea of knight to g4 is to go here, right? And just win an exchange. So after this, I decide to go for rook to b1. Rook to b1. And here, I'm setting up just one trap. Then my opponent plays this. At the time, I was thinking it was a draw, but when I checked the engine, it was apparently a win for me. But I had set up one trap. And that's if they take the free pawn on a3. You see, the engine says it's winning, but at the time, I thought it was a draw because I didn't really see a way to make much more progress in the attack. Because now, I can go for rook to f1. Right? The rook goes to the f file, and suddenly I'm threatening queen to f7 check. It's very strong, because then the queen to e8 might come in. And how do you solve this? Right? They go for e5, sacrificing a pawn with an idea of trying to block off the f file with the bishop. So I decided to play h3 first, which is, and they go for knight to h6. And here, apparently this is winning, but I thought it was a draw. What I had to do was just take the free pawn instead of playing queen to d8 check. Still winning, but then I played queen to f6 and offered a draw, and he accepted. But this is winning because I can take this pawn here, and I can always win this back. And then there's like knight to e7 check coming in. So I kind of swindled out his win because he took the free pawn. But then apparently I was winning. I didn't know that at the time. So after takes, this is a strong position. I wonder what Gulak's best defense is. Knight to f5 to prevent the check and closing off the f file. Seems pretty nice. Apparently rook takes f5. Wow. So definitely some lessons learned from this game. And then knight d7 check. And then you have to give the queen. But I think the main lesson I learned from this game was not was the fact that I was winning, but because I thought it was a draw, I stopped looking. You see, because if you already have a perpetual check, right, you might as well stop. But you might as well stop for quite some time to look for a win, because you could have only 1 second left, but you can always play like queen to d8 check, 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 and take the draw. But you can also look for a win here. So like for example, if I had played knight takes d5, this would have been completely winning, but it's fine. So I offered a draw here, and my opponent accepted. That is the end of the video, and bye.